It's starting down now on to get the it's really
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the June meeting of the Cromwell Community Board. I'm in the chair today because we have an apology from Anna Harrison, which we'll come to in just a second. So we can get on with the meeting, and we'll go to page 5, which is apologies. As just mentioned, we have an apology at the last minute from Anna Harrison, who is unfortunately unwell. So could I please have a mover and a seconder that the apology be accepted? So, well, yeah, and Sarah. Thank you. There is no speakers for the public forum today. So we'll move on to the next item, which is confirmation of the minutes of two previous meetings, in fact. The Cromwell Community Board meeting on the 7th of May, which is on page 7. Could I please have a mover and a seconder for that those minutes be accepted? Thank you, Wally. And Cheryl, thank you. And we also have the minutes of the meeting from the extraordinary Cromwell Community Board meeting on the 4th of June, which is page 13. Okay. We have a mover, please, and a seconder that those minutes be accepted. Sarah and Wally, yep. Thank you. We're now going to move on to the declaration of interest. I don't think there are any changes to that, to the declarations of interest at all. So we just move on. Yeah, okay, thank you. And okay, so now we're moving on to page 15. I'm sorry, page 18, which is the Cromwell and District Community Trust Grant Facility report. And we've got Rebecca Williams who's going to speak to that. So thank you, Rebecca.
Thank you.
The floor is yours.
So quickly, just an apology from the chair of the Cromwell District Community Trust. She's out of town today, and I said that I was sure that I'll be able to convey the feedback or questions that the board might have to her. So the trust, as reported on, the trust had came and applied for a grant. They thought that their project was going to be notified, and that of course costs a lot more money than a non-notified consent. However, once they got the application, then it was proceeded on a non-notified basis. So they've got some money left over, and they've provided their accountability of their first spend, and they've asked if they could keep that for this next phase of their project, which of course is the much more expensive building phase. And this report is just bringing that for your decision.
Okay, thank you. Does anybody have any comments on that at all?
I think it's a bit of a no-brainer, really. I think it's logical. So
yeah.
I just don't think the authority to do it.
Is there any consenting barriers still to get through in terms of lease agreements or anything?
That's still, I think there have been, I think they have been having trouble getting a hold of limbs. But I think that there's recently been a conversation with staff of the council about how to make their process a little easier. I don't know.
Yeah. So, Woody and I just getting the boundary adjusted for our management plan along the lakefronts, and then that way they'll just have a application to LINZ. You're going to put them in touch with the right resources and get this process going.
It's not extending the lease as such, but it's just convincing LINZ that council's got it under control.
No. So what happens at the moment, the area that they want the Chinese village to sit under half of it under the CODC management plan,
Yeah.
half of it sitting under LINS.
Yeah.
So that gets quite messy within the application. So we're reducing our boundary so that they've got one application into LINS to sort that area.
Oh, cool. Sweet. I think it's a good idea. The money's gone to them, they've also been the same project.
Makes a change to the under, not over, so most.
Yeah, that's right.
They may come back with an application part of that stage of the process. And I'll remind the board of this if that happens.
Yeah, it's good to make that boundary allocation.
So if everyone's happy, we can move to the resolution, which is that the Community Board A, receives the report and accepts the level of significance. B, notes the accountability report from the Cromwell and District Community Trust. And C, agrees to allow the Cromwell and District Community Trust to use the unspent portion of their 2022-23 community grant of $1,963.08 on the build phase of the Chinese settlement project. So, Cheryl Miller, thank you, and thank you.
It's been away.
Thank you, Rebecca. Cheers. Well, we're having a bit of an issue here with this.
Do you want to see a bit of to take this something? I'll put it on my phone.
That's fine.
Yeah, thank you.
Technological failure.
Thank you.
Technical.
So we had a mover and a seconder for that. Could we just ask the board if everyone's in favour, say aye, please?
Aye.
Thank you.
I think that was an eye.
Yeah.
Sounds like a
Thank you.
Right. Okay. All right. Thank you. Right. So we're moving on now to the next paper, which is 24.6.3, which is on page 101. The Neplusultra Street Reserve Management Plan. And welcome, Gordon Bailey.
Thank you. So through the chair, this is a report for the board to consider submissions to amend the Neplusultra Street Reserve Management Plan. One is to remove the policy that says not to provide toilets in the reserve, and the other one is to amend the beautification strip from 30 metres down to 15 metres. You'll see we've got 22 submissions. I think most of them were in favour, and well, one was partly in favour and had some suggestions which we've put some of the comments that we can probably will be able to, I guess, amend the toilet so it's I guess less public is what was asked for. So once the board considers the submissions and they approve the recommendation, then this will go to council, who under its delegation from the Minister of Conservation will ratify the board's ratify the changes to the plan. So happy to answer any questions.
Anybody have any questions at all?
Where are the toilets planned to go?
So if you're sitting in a function in the student with the squash club, looking at the squash club in the launch room, it's behind the parking lot of the squash club. That's where
That's further away from to Apple Street.
correct. That's it. Yeah.
So they're not going to be on the street.
No.
Is that what I'm looking at this?
So we had quite a few residents that were facing that street.
Didn't want to put the toilet.
Well, they basically raised the concerns. So we listened to the concerns, we looked at different locations, and then we moved them down to where that everyone's agreed to that, including the lady who's resistant slightly, but she just wants a little bit more discreet type of burial fencing or where it's going to take place.
Is that going to change the cost by putting it further away?
No, we'll remain within budget.
I would have thought that actually moving it to that location is likely to make it less of a public facility than it would have been if it was in the original situation anyway.
Yeah.
Because it's not going to be so visible.
100%. But I think the majority of the users of that area are primarily the mountain bike and the BMX clubs.
Yeah.
And I mean, just on race days, you can see the popularity of that reserve. So they were all happy with the location. And to be honest with you, we just didn't want to cause a big ruckus with the residents, even though we were well within our rights, as long as the plan got amended.
Yeah, to go through this official.
I think everyone's happy on this page, and it's a better way to go.
Yeah.
And so you're going to put up a public sign saying that there are public toilets there?
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
It becomes part of our program.
So, yeah.
Sorry, Neil?
I was going to say, and I assume that we will provide some sort of formal notification of assuming we adopt the recommendation of where these toilets are going to go, so it's well understood and known about.
Absolutely.
Yes, we'll reply to all the submitted information and also the decision of the board.
What's the opportunity for vandalism of something that's now less visible?
We have explored a few options with cameras, and I think it's just following the fact that we've had part of the vandalism in
Well, that's
the toilets. So we have got some costings in play, but we've just been responsible with quite a high rate increase to be responsible. So we'll let it play out as it is. They're pretty good, robust toilets from Exeter, and we'll see where we get to. If we have any incidents, then we can start looking and mitigating.
So in terms of next steps, these couple of changes were to address a couple of blatantly obvious points to get us across the line in the short term. If you fast forward, might be 2, 3, 10 years, I'm not sure, but this reserve management plan is pretty old. Is there a longer, like a wider lens going to get cast over the reserve at some point?
So this is one of a number of reserve management plans we have that are 20+ years old.
Yeah.
And we also have a number of reserves that don't have reserve management plans. So it's part of prioritising that process and where the need is really. The management plan doesn't expire, it's still applicable to account to the board changes there.
Yeah.
So I know some of the policies are a bit old in here now, but the guts of it's pretty good still.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's just how we prioritise that program with the staff member, one staff member that works on this sort of stuff.
Right.
Just one further question, Mr. Chairman, just to make sure that we're on the same page. The actual location of these toilets, I know it was just talked about, but couldn't quite understand for sure where from here. So can we show that on the screen just so there's no doubt we know we're all talking about the same place where these things are going to go?
I mean, I can show you the location on the GIS there.
Yeah,
That'll do. Yeah.
Right, jump on.
Assumptions are the mother of a lot of things, and I don't think we need to have that happening to us.
Just coming up now.
Interactive. Secure.
This is so this. So if you share there, then I can just put your mouse.
While they're doing that, I just wonder if it'll be sensible for us to, as part of our recommendations, to consider resolving where the toilets are going to go, just so there is no doubt, and it's quite clear.
If everyone can see that, hardly. It's, I wonder if I can zoom into.
If you get rid of the,
Have to get rid of this menu.
over and
Yeah.
down, that can go a bit into. There you go.
So basically the toilets are going to be in this location over here, just behind the car park.
Cool, excellent, thank you.
Be accessible from Neplusultra.
Neplusultra, in fact, all over. If you can walk to it, you can get to it. So be a bit tough walking to the race day, but anyway. Yeah.
If I remember correctly, just at that point on Neplusultra Street, there is actually almost like a sort of a lay-by pulling.
Yes, that is quite,
Yeah.
So it's easy access for a vehicle to pull over and then get to the toilet.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
Yeah. Yeah, that's right. Mhm.
How many were they just unisex?
Unisex,
So,
and
the disabled one?
I'll say 2 pence, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So do we want the resolution updated so that what the location is? Is that what we're saying?
Yeah, that should put a separate line is that this deals with a reserve management plan amendment. You need to put separate D, I guess.
Yeah.
The meeting's being recorded. I think we're on record saying where it's going to be in.
It's the toilet.
Located in the northwest corner.
Yeah, behind the squash court parking.
The recommendation is that okay, yeah. Bring up now. So A, receives the report and accepts the level of significance. B, receives the submission to amend the Neplusultra Street Reserve Management Plan 2000. C, agrees to recommend to Council that Neplusultra Street Reserve Management Plan 2000 is amended to remove Part 6.6 ablutions, Policy 1, not to provide public toilets at the reserve. Amend Part 7.3, amenity planning, to retain and further develop grass beautification strips at least 15 metres wide on the street frontages. And D, notes that the new toilets will be located in the northwest corner of the reserve behind the squash parking area. Yeah,
Courts parking.
squash courts, I think I should say, shouldn't it?
Club.
Squash club, okay. So, sorry, read that again. So D, notes that the new toilets will be located in the northwest corner of the reserve behind the squash club parking area. Everybody happy with that?
I'll be a nitpicker and say it should probably say adjacent.
Yeah.
Behind, yeah.
So we're running a bit ahead of schedule, so I'll read it again.
I think it should say adjacent to.
Yeah.
Okay. Right, so recommendation D is notes that the new toilets will be located in the northwest corner of the reserve, adjacent to the squash club parking area.
Dusted, yes.
Okay, we're done.
Yeah.
So
Just one other thing I've noted, it should be 2002, not 2000 in those
Oh.
amendments.
okay,
Yes. I don't know how that happened. Good catch.
right, okay, so we're going to have to amend that as well.
I've just updated that.
So do we need to go back and do that again? Or
No.
that's okay. Just a typo. No. So B and C have both been amended to 2002. Okay. So Cheryl, is going to move that. Second. All those in favour?
Right.
Thank you.
Right.
Right. Right.
Thank you, Gordon.
It's a very happy box for them. Yes.
Right, so now we're going to move on to item 24.6.4 on page 164, which is continuing digitalisation of council activities. Saskia, thank you.
Thank you very much, members. So we come to you this afternoon this paper that formalises the material that was presented in the workshop a couple of weeks ago. And what it does show, probably the key thing for this ward is that under distritisation model that pretty much districtise the remaining activities bar grants, and motions, is there's a benefit overall to the Cromwell ward of $52 per ratepayer. So what's essentially driving that positive balance there is, in essence, all of the district will be paying for your operating costs for your hall. So that's really what's coming through in the data there. And obviously there's other considerations for this board as we go through this project. So what this paper does see today, perhaps obviously formalising it in the paper, is avenues for further engagement of this board. So you'll see in the paper an opportunity at next Wednesday's council meeting for the chair or the deputy or representative, but it doesn't need to be the deputy if another available, to come along and talk to council really around the board's initial thinking, questions, concerns. It doesn't need to be your position, just in essence, any sort of initial thinking from the board. And then what we further invite for this board, which of course is an option for you to take if you wish, is to provide sort of a written statement of this board's position. Now, we have put in the paper by Monday, the 8th of July. The reason for that deadline, and we do appreciate that sort of gives us less than a month for this board to formalise that, is that would enable council officers to integrate your thoughts within the paper. If that's not possible, I know another board it's not possible, they've got members overseas, we could still take that up until Friday the 19th of July. At that stage though, we would just simply append your statement to the paper. We would do that anyway, verbatim, so every board that does put in a submission, they will be attached, to say that opportunity to us to integrate your thinking, and maybe there's some stuff we haven't thought about to address in the paper. If we've had that by the 8th of July, that would enable us to do so. So I'll take any questions at this stage from the board.
Any questions from any members?
I don't have a question, but I'll wait until there is any, and then I've just got a something for the board to think about in terms of how we pick up Part D in particular.
Wally has a question here, so Wally, thank you.
Yeah, first question, I've got about 20, but where are we at with development contributions? We've talked about rethinking development contributions.
Yeah. So that's a very good question. So that is an item on our LGP. So where we are with our LGP is we have presented a draft timeline to DLT. We just need to make a couple of amendments, and then we're going to take that to council, and development contributions are within there. Are you thinking particularly around the community facilities one that has been talked about, a potential there?
Well, yeah, that's one, but also Three Waters Roading. Roading's got bridges loaded into it, which is not a consideration from not the same consideration it was 10 years ago.
Yeah.
Three Waters is obviously not the same consideration it was 10 years ago.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure how often council really pull apart the development contributions and put it back together.
I've only been through one for LGP, and I think there's probably members of your board that can speak more accurately to this than me, but it wasn't a wholesale review last time, but there's definitely the work and training that we have already identified with it. I don't know if Neil has any sort of thoughts on that, and of course we take direction of council if council say to us, hey, we really want to interrogate that. So obviously you can reflect that up via your members and sit on council.
I know that our development contributions are probably some of the lowest in the country. Some are up near $100,000. I'm not suggesting we go anywhere near that, but it is essentially a user pays scheme, isn't it?
Yeah.
With numbers behind it.
Yeah,
that's right. I mean, through you, Chair. Yeah, there has to be a lot of rigour to when you go through the process of determining the development contribution policy, because it is challengeable. You have to go out and consult, and invariably the development community and those engaged in that will be very active participants in that process. So it has to be backed up by really strong growth figures, and we've got that. We know it's 12.6 over the last 5 years and going forward.
You know, the cost
But
of
it is-
moving forward.
Yeah, it's a significant body of work, but it is something that's suited for the LGP. But it also comes with its own special consultative process, doesn't it, the development contribution?
yes, it does. So we traditionally do consult right alongside the LTP, but under the legislation it does require it's sort of its own consultation. So as part of the consultation package, we need to separately sort of highlight to the community the changes here. But for convenience, often we'll just run along the LTP, but it's its own process.
And it does usually require special input from council.
Yeah.
I think the key thing from my observation of this policy is that it's got to actually reflect predicted costs that are planned and what's the word, have some rigour to them. It's not just a thumb suck exercise. It's got to have a fair bit of substance to it all. So it's a very complex process, and you know, where people have been appealed in the past, as my understanding is when there's been less or questions about the rigour of the what the predictions are based on. So, you know, I would fully expect as part of our 25-34 LTP that we'll be revisiting the development and financial contributions policy in line with what's going to go into that LTP, and the contributions will reflect that. And, you know, while they, I guess my comment, Wally, is that while they look low, they can only be what they can be. We can't just say, well, that's too low, let's make it double. Tempting as it might
Not
be.
suggesting we double them or even add to them. I just think it needs to be a conscious decision. That's all.
Yeah, I think Cheryl has a question, please.
So just further to what you said, Neil, what is there a specific trigger in terms of growth that actually activate that?
I would have through you, Chair. I'd have to confirm.
Yeah.
Most policies have to be reviewed either on a 3 yearly or 6 week yearly cycle. The DCs, perhaps I can't quite recall what the frequency of that one is, but invariably, you know, I would say yes, it should be, but it might not be on regular cycles. It might be when you anticipate a growth spurt and you need to get ahead of that. That you start. I know where I came from. They didn't have a development contribution policy because there was no development occurring in the 2010-2016 period, so they just didn't want to discourage any growth. But when growth started to come, then they had to develop a DC policy. Of course, sometimes.
The paper mentions that the ability for internal borrowing between Lords is not going to be available in coming years. What's Cromwell's current return on internal loans?
The commercial rate, isn't it?
Is there a line
That's
item?
nothing to our financial expert, yeah.
Actually tell you what the interest rate is at the moment.
Yeah. It didn't jump out at me, like as a dollar figure anyway, but like it didn't jump out at me in the numbers in the report.
No, so it will come through as a budgetary figure, so it is paid for in our increase in our LTPs as well as the repayments into your reserves. Even off the top of my head, I can't actually think of all of the advice that Cromwell might have, but I believe that there is either a water or a wastewater one for work that was done down in the Roxburgh. That's one that's in my head. And I think the Cromwell one's like that was transferred when the 3 quarters was discussed.
Yeah.
So that's still being paid off now.
Peter and I are just recalling at the table here that Susan had mentioned a figure of 5.5 at a previous meeting, but we'll have to go back and get that here for you. Yeah.
But it stays in coming years, I think, but what is the date that those internal loans won't be a thing anymore?
So if
And what's
district-
driving it, I suppose.
Yeah, so if it would go ahead, nothing would change until the next financial year. So essentially, that would be in the LTP. Anything that has already been committed, and Cromwell's a really good example with your hall, that has already been agreed by council, those funding sources. So that would continue. So in essence, if council agreed on the proposal, it would start from the 25-26 financial year.
So it's a council-driven initiative to not be able to borrow between wards.
It's not necessarily about borrowing between wards. It's the principle behind it is much more around that we've got some real key big issues coming up, like 3 waters, as you're aware. And in terms of the council being able to look at all the books and make those decisions in the best interest of the district. So it flows then that those activities would be funded at a ward level, and that's why you wouldn't have the internal borrowing, because those activities would now be funded at the district.
Yeah, so assuming everything gets districtised, so the inability to borrow between wards is assuming the position that everything's districtised.
Yes, because those ward accounts would sort of cease to exist once the money had been expended for what had already been committed out.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, it's just a pre-past tense thing in the reporting, I think. So something else out of the report raised the question, will council's debt profile prevent the Cromwell ward from developing the Bannockburn Road industrial subdivision? And that's in the context of council required the expedient development of land in order to cover the cost of the hall construction. So there was a sentence in there, basically, I guess it came across as a bit of a warning shot that council might not have the money up front to enable the development of the Bannockburn Road development.
Officially on that one, so a couple of things to that. First of all, is we will be provisioning in the LTP money to do exactly that.
Yeah, cool.
And so that will be put into the LTP. The second thing, though, I think is really relevant is council's debt profile is its debt profile and all the activities to council, regardless of whether we stick with the ward-based system or not, that what happened in that ward is reflected in our debt profile. So we all carry that debt, regardless of where it's raised or what it's used for. But the intention of Bannockburn is to invest in its development, and we need to put money aside in the LTP to enable it.
Yeah, cool. I didn't get that impression from the report.
So as part of the annual plan budget that council are looking at next Wednesday, there is money that has been put into the property budgets to do a project on the Bannockburn in terms of its value, the cost of doing the horizontal infrastructure.
It's going to include concept designs, engineering designs, roading designs, and then looking at a DCE, which is development estimates, and that will inform us to be able to inform the LCP on how much money we require for that.
Yeah.
Point.
Yep. Yeah, there's more. So proceeds from endowment land cannot be used outside of the original borough area. Is that correct?
Correct. That we've got some very consistent and strong legal advice on that, so that is correct.
So, for example, proceeds from the Bannockburn Road industrial development couldn't fund the water upgrade out at Mount Pleasant.
Sure. On the
Because
basis of the
that was
endowment,
Vincent County, wasn't
it
it?
was original with Vincent County.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that raises another point. We've been given endowment land and council holding maps. Is there a map available of what the original Cromwell Borough was?
There will be.
There will be.
I actually don't have it to hand.
Yeah.
It does say it's for the, benefit of, I think if you, I was actually just reading that, so if you just bear with me. Because I was just looking at, so the mayor, councillors and burgesses of borough council, a state and fee simple fund trust in aid of borough funds. And so we know that technically it's only for the people of Cromwell.
Yeah.
I think we could test where that borough of Cromwell is it where it was historically or where it is now. So I wouldn't rule out I'm not sure if it's been that clarified. We know it can only be used for the purposes of Cromwell.
Yeah.
But can it be for the wound tree stuff? So, you know,
Yeah.
because the borough of Cromwell, like the borough of Alexander, was a very small, finite piece of dirt.
Yeah.
And so I think we would need to maybe just test that.
We can't say 150 years after the fact that those boundaries were pretty blurry at the time. Someone on this side of the line was paying these rates and someone on the other side. And someone
But
else.
I think the argument that it is for the benefit of the Cromwell, there's no issue about that. That's a lot. It's just where does that extend to geographically?
I think
You go, sorry, Neil.
I think it raises a really interesting point. It won't be hard to find the Cromwell Borough District Scheme to find out what the Cromwell Borough was, but I bet you that borough was probably different when the endowments were done to what the borough ended up before CODC came into place. I'm sure there would have been some changes along the way, but it's just, and this probably won't matter, but you'd think if the Vincent County had any endowment land, does that mean now that they should be rightly spending some of that endowment money in Lake Hawea Township?
So a question, just to quickly answer to that one. So the Alexander, so the Vincent Community Board, you know, does have endowment land that was given to the borough of Alexander. And but that land straddled both the borough and the Vincent County, so it was given to the Alexander Borough Council. So there are anomalies anyway.
Yeah, I think what it highlights to me is the need that we get some clear direction about saying, well, is the modern day interpretation of the Cromwell Borough, could that mean the Cromwell Ward? And I know, you know, a whole can of worms, but I just think we will need to understand that best we can. And I think even some of the Cromwell endowment land, I got a funny feeling on the Bannockburn Strait might have been outside in the Vincent County as well.
Yeah, that's right. And I think logically, I think that would be the logical interpretation. But legally, we'll test that.
Yeah.
Could well be Vincent Council land. So, it gets really untidy. And through you, Mr. Chair, the board would want to be careful of saying, well, the boundary of the Cromwell Borough should really apply to the ward, because the exact same argument, if you're going to crack that crystal vase, the exact same argument could apply to the whole district. Where do you stop? Once you've broken it, where do you stop? Because it's very clear at the moment what it says. It's what was the borough at the time the endowment was given. Start messing about with that. And that's actually a really good, interesting point, is whether that Bannockburn industrial actually is in the old borough, whether it's in
the native borough fund. There are no more borough funds.
Yeah.
So that legal concept has changed now. It's from the state, but not a borough.
Yeah, it's fascinating, isn't it?
And it probably doesn't matter that it was. It doesn't really matter where the land was. At the end of the day, that doesn't matter. It matters just where the proceeds of that land go to, which is as Peter just said, the Cromwell Borough, which doesn't exist.
The borough. Yeah, you're exactly right. But it did go to the borough, not the county. So even if it was in the county, it went to the borough. Good point.
The running theme here, I'd like to think, is that we can only make good decisions if we've got good information. Right.
Correct.
So we'll just take that one, carry on. Okay. Area is set to be seed funded. Hey, Gary.
Yes.
Yep. Will council be looking to fund that from Plan Change 18 if Gear funds were taken to the district, because that's freehold land, right? Is that an option that's on the table?
So what we have had in the legal advice, any freehold land, if we had the fully discharged model, it would be up to councillors to decide how that money is allocated. So the endowment land, as we've just talked about, does have a special status. Feasible land does not. Yeah.
So the seed funding regime that we've currently got in front of us is questionable at this point.
Well, it might be seed funding, but how it is funded could be, that would be a matter for, if it's not already locked into budgets, then it's a discussion for in the LTP.
At this point in time, it is locked into the budget.
It's noted here that if we agree to districtisation today, it's a real big shot in the face of the Teviot ward, who are already suffering from massive rates increases. They'll get another $233, I think. Just noted.
But on that point, when you look at historically with the cost of road and the cost of water, many of those in Teviot have been subsidised by Cromwell.
They won last time.
That's right. So this is balancing the ledger, so to speak.
And one of the big drivers, just to point that out, is the other three wards do have a subsidised rate pool within them, that the Teviot doesn't. So their recreation charge is lower than the other three wards for that very reason. So you're absolutely right, Wally, because they don't have essentially the same level of service provided by council, there will be an increase, and definitely in discussions with the Teviot, if that's something they wanted to do in the future, that would be up to the pool committee, and that's a conversation for the LTP, whether or not that would be something to sort of more even up things, where the council would look at that. So noted in definitely in the thinking of the Teviot board.
I think it's also important to note that a couple of things, that the percentage is high because the base is lower.
Yeah.
So the number in terms of dollars is a high percentage, but in terms of, and if you go back to when we did the districtisation of three waters, in the end said like for like services, like for like costs. So ultimately, potentially what this is working towards is the same sort of concept all the way through. But yeah, the percentage I find is always a little bit, I won't say misleading, but it can be high. But the reality is that when you're on starting from a lower base, that's what makes the percentage high. And what really hurts is not the percentage; it's actually the quantum.
I'll just note, in my position as a community board member, I haven't received any legal advice in relation to the endowment land. We've talked about, the gist of what the legal advice is, but I still haven't received anything.
Yeah, well, we're having a discussion, very topical right now. I don't know if anyone read the post yesterday on this particular point. And that's an absolutely valid point. And so I think our initial inclination is we will be making the legal advice available. We'll probably put it onto the SharePoint site. The only thing, all I would request is that it's for elected members only, and members of the public who may wish to see it would have to go through the normal recording process. Right. But it's as a general rule of thumb, I think that is the right approach. It hasn't been consistent in any council, and this council included. We just have to get our head around that. But generally, that's the direction of travel, and so we will. I think there's about 5 bits of advice we've received since 1992 on this particular subject. It is all consistent.
Yeah.
And the intention would be I just need to confirm with my colleagues to share it, put it onto the SharePoint site for council, so you have access to that.
And I want to say, Wally, that we're meeting next week. So we're with Peter. Just to get some clarity in our thinking. And historically, one of the arguments, and definitely my time here, for not releasing the legal advice has been in case that, especially if it's an active case, it can compromise council's position. But the advice that we've got is really consistent, and it's past issues. So we just need to go through it and make sure there's nothing that could damage any party's reputation of past issue. Is probably really what we need to look at this week. Our starting point is to be available.
My suggestion would be is that we should do that work to find out whether it's actually what's the word, whether it is actually something that can't be released because it's going to come public through a Laguna process anyway, just to make it less pain-free, dare I say?
Yeah.
It has bothered me since the start of the year that, like, I'm an elected member representing the community. Councillors are elected members representing the community. We've basically got the same interests at heart, but the legal advice has been seen to be council's legal privilege over that of the community board. And I'm just saying that bothers me. It's not something that I've been comfortable with.
Valid point.
I've got another question.
Okay.
The cost benefit of districtisation, obviously it appears to be a lot more of an efficient model where you're running, you're always going to have some sort of ward accounts, some description perhaps, but what's the cost benefit in terms of how many staff at council are going to lose their jobs from the inefficiencies that they're currently enduring?
So I think it's a more simplified model. And because there is a complexity to In terms of where it's inefficient in that we have staff effort attuned to that, where we can have better apply the staff effort in the finance team on partnering up across the organisation in terms of providing appropriate financial advice to the various parts of the organisation. But right now, it's almost head down, writing into the nitty gritty, but they just don't have the capacity or the time to free themselves up and look across the business. What this would do, you're quite right, it would free up some resource that then we could better apply across the wider organisation, so that as teams work through their budgets, they're sitting down side by side with a financial advisor who can provide them the advice they need. Right now, that's difficult for us.
And I would also hope that some of my staff would start working a 40-hour week. Rather than what I've seen in the last few months, I had my team in at nights and the weekends. In fact, Donna was working on the annual plan of the weekend. So what we do is a quite a pressured finance team. I've got 2 consultants subsidising just BAU work at the moment. So in terms of the cost benefit, I think it really would really help the finance team to be able to do their jobs better, and as Peter said, really focus on the stuff they need to focus on, and hopefully within a normal 40-hour week would be the goal of that.
Not all benefits have financial tags, I'm
That's
well
right.
aware of that. So I guess that's the point, we need to drive a bit harder.
Yes.
Anyone else have any points they'd like to raise?
Still got a couple of things.
Okay.
I'm sure this has been asked before, maybe off the record, but can endowment land development proceeds be used to subsidise board rates?
I don't think that would be a prudent use of endowment land, because again, you can, as a general rule of thumb, and in the past experiences, you can use your carryovers or your reserves to help offset some of the costs, because you've already rated your community for that. But in terms of strategic asset like endowment land, and using maybe the same argument's true for Aurora and Wellington Airport, perhaps, but I don't think it would be a prudent use of funding, a strategic asset like that to offset rates. That's sort of, I'd open that up to Donna.
Technically you could, but we would never advise you to, but you take away, Donna.
So technically in the past, the panel of the Cromwell Memorial Pool was now actually taking on the majority of the work reserves. The Cromwell board has been using the interest on those funds to subsidise MPs. To be prudent with the use of your funds, you should actually be more earmarking surplus reserves from your sales, or even like the Otahi reserve realignment to specific projects. So what that does is it actually reduces the requirement to actually go into debt. So it's actually using it for a more constructive project rather than using it to offset the rates, which in turn will stabilise your rates too.
And ultimately that would be up to the council to decide on a long-term plan as we go through the financial strategy. But as you've heard today, we don't think it would be prudent that we go.
I didn't mention anything about how we would get the money. Are you assuming a sell-off, or?
No, so what I'm saying is if you're wanting to use those funds to.
I was thinking more like if we've got 50 hectares of industrial land to develop and we ended up with 15 hectares of it leased out as an asset that continues to generate income, could that offset rates on a year-on-year basis?
Creating surplus to business, and it would be more beneficial to use that generation of income to benefit your community with projects.
Yeah, I mean, these are not decisions for today, but worth exploring. I think it was the workshop. I don't have docs on that working, but in the workshop slides, there was a bullet point on a recap on lessons learned regarding the delegation's decision paper. Just wondering if you could expand on that.
Yes, absolutely. So really, we heard very strongly from our boards, and actually this board in particular, that we hadn't enabled enough time to have a conversation with the board. We passed our minds earlier this year. Boards felt that they didn't have enough time to formally submit, and that the paper had basically already been written before any of your feedback had been gathered or incorporated. Hence why we are this time, obviously the workshop a fortnight ago, the paper in front of you today, and those two opportunities for engagement to enable the board's voice to be more loudly heard. So that's really the lesson.
We are a learning organisation.
Ollie?
I'll stop.
Okay.
If you have any questions, feel free to email them to your members here and share them with us, and then we can.
We're more than happy to take any questions outside of this meeting to inform the informal feedback and your written feedback.
It's a little difficult to actually see because they're not in the room whether either Mary or Neil have any questions, but is there anything there?
Yeah, I do. I haven't got a question. As I said earlier, I've got an observation in relation to recommendation D that I'd like to share with the board members, but I'll wait till all the questions are done before we start discussing that.
I think. Sorry, Mary.
I was going to say if it's around to my turn, I've got a couple of questions, but I'm happy to wait until it's my turn.
I think everybody else has actually already had their turn.
Yeah, that's what I thought as well. I just have a question. It might have already been covered in the presentation that was last time that it got moved, so I couldn't attend. It's just on page 167. I just want to know why. So it's like in the future, council will not have the ability for boards to borrow internally from other boards. Why not? Is the law changing, or is that a policy that's changing? What's changing?
Yes, so what it would be, Mary, because there would be, your activities would get funded at the district level. So in essence, there, apart from your grants, there would be not a whole lot in ward accounts. So there would be nothing there to borrow against, if you see what I mean.
Yeah, absolutely. So no money going in means no money can come out. Yeah, perfect. I just have a question. So it goes from 167 to 168, and it's that all wards have reserves accounts. Some are surplus, some are negative, and then it's once the money in the Cromwell reserves are spent, then we will have relatively similar reserve levels. And then going to the presentation that was presented last meeting, to page 182, it just looked like the Cromwell reserves did bounce back a bit. I just wanted to understand that better.
Yes, so essentially what that is essentially in a year sort of 2025 to 2026, when the whole is completed, there'll be relatively similar levels. Yes, so Mary, I can see how this is not clear from the presentation slides. But then what you do see in the graph from 27 onwards, we do see the money of Toto drop down, and the Cromwell does pick up again. So yes, post those years, there would be, depending on the work programs agreed, there would be variances. But what we're trying to say is, in the next couple of years, there's a relatively even playing field amongst the boards.
Okay, and what drives is that further property sales with that Cromwell reserves increasing?
Yeah, so that's exactly right. There'll be a mixture of income you're receiving, and what's driving the money in Toto drop is their halls. So they've got quite a few community halls that are currently planned to be strengthening. So if that plan continued, that's where money in Toto dips down. And John has got anything further to add? Yes.
Okay.
Thank you, Mary. Are you okay with that now?
I think so. Yeah. Thank you very much.
Okay. Neil, perhaps you'd like now to put your point.
Yeah, I just think going forward and picking up on one of the recommendations, which is that we provide feedback by that date, which and thanks Saskia for explaining that could be pushed out. I guess for the board, I'm interested to see if others think the same as me, is that a good chance for us to do that. As part of doing that, we would go and look at the position statement that we developed and review that in light of what's information that we now have available to us that we didn't have previously. And probably I'm picking that would be the starting point for us in terms of the feedback we'd provide, is look at that and say, well, where are we? This is where we were. Where are we now? And has our position changed? Does that make any sense, or am I on the wrong track, do you think?
That's our baseline, for sure.
Yeah, that's the baseline, but that doesn't give us an awful lot of time, does it? Because we're really talking about less than 3 weeks from now.
Yep, we've done it once. We'll do it again. Let's not make excuses like others.
Okay.
But as I said, if the board finds they cannot meet that date, your written statement will be attached verbatim to the report. You might just not see your thoughts picked up in the body of the report, but it will be there for council to consider in the paper.
And one of my reasons for pointing that out is that it probably also gives a bit of a lead to others that are part of this conversation, and saying, well, here goes what they're going to be doing. We might want to look at that ourselves and think how they might want to go and where they might want to go without second guessing it. But
so on that basis, then, are we happy to proceed with the recommendations?
We'll get it done by the 8th.
Yeah.
Do we need to amend D though to put that provision for a later date if we don't make that?
Up to the board, we absolutely will take it up until the 19th of July, which is the date when Peter's reviewing papers.
So
It's on camera.
Yeah. You can hold me to the
Obviously, that's the
31st of July.
That's the intention.
we don't need to adjust that. Okay. Right. Okay, so the recommendations are that Cromwell Community Board, A, receives the report and accepts the level of significance. B, to consider further districtisation of council activities and how the Cromwell Community Board will provide feedback to the council. 3, the chair or delegate attend a workshop to provide informal feedback from the Cromwell Board to council on the 26th of June 2024. And D, agree to provide written feedback to the council by 5 p.m. on Monday, the 8th of July 2024. So can I have a mover for that motion, please? Recommendation. Yes. Cheryl? And a seconder, please.
I will.
Sarah? You? Oh,
No, whatever.
we'll have Neil, thank you. So all those in favour?
Aye.
That's carried, thank you. Thank you, Saskia, thank you very much. And now we're moving on to item 24.6.5 on page 206, which is the Local Government New Zealand Community Board Conference. Okay. So the purpose of this report is to consider whether the board would like to send a representative to the Local Government New Zealand Community Board Conference to be held in Wellington from the 21st to the 23rd of August 2024. So do we have any comments from any members, please? Cheryl?
As I said before, earlier on, I actually attended the community board conference in Gore and I found it very beneficial. It's actually really good. Learned a lot. It was quite topical at the time because there was a lot of free waters going on, and it was really, really beneficial to compare us to other community boards. Yeah, I would highly recommend it. It was good.
And I'd just like to encourage someone to take up the chance to go. It seems to be, it's good that it's going to be run at the same time as the local government conference that councillors and the mayor will be going at as well, which is a sensible thing to be doing, if I've got that right. And having been involved in the previous in previous days in the community boards executive for all New Zealand community boards. It's a great chance just to learn what others are doing, and I think particularly as we're heading into districtisation, there'd be a chance for someone to have some conversations who's got lots of questions about districtisation to actually have some conversations with other community boards about how it works in their patch.
I'm keen to go. Get out there.
He got the hint.
Get into it.
I think, Wally is obviously a member of the community board and not a member of the council as well. So that would actually make sense, I would assume. Yeah.
Move that.
And Sarah, second that. So, right, so we've got recommendations here. We're going to just move straight on to that. Yeah.
Sounds good.
Mary's happy with that as well, so that's fine. So just waiting for that to be amended.
It's four.
Yeah. I'll come to that. I'll come across to that. So, okay. So the recommendations are that the Cromwell Community Board A, receives the report and accepts the level of significance. B, approves the Cromwell Community Board member to attend the Local Government New Zealand Community Board Conference in Wellington, 21st to the 23rd of August 2024. And C, that the nominates.
So nominates.
Yes. Nominates Mr. Sanford to attend the conference. So we're happy with that. So thank you. I have a mover from Sarah and Cheryl. Let's second that. Thank you. All those in favour?
Aye.
All right.
Good. So Sarah, thank you for that. Yeah. Yeah. Right, so we're moving on now to item 24.6.6, which is the Cromwell Financial Report for the period ending 31st of March 2024. That's on page 209, and we have Donna here. Thank you very much, Donna.
So paper is being read. Financial report for the 31st of March 2024 is a favourable operating variance of 1.4 million against the revised budget. We have made adjustments to remove the land sales budgets that have been in there along with their cost of sales, as they were causing significant variances. And as we know, there will be no subdivisions of this financial year. So we have removed 2.5 million budgeted revenue and 6.7 million in budgeted land sales costs. And they'll just be moved into the LGP projects. So revenue has a favourable variance of 1.1 million. Driving this is internal interest revenue, land sale proceeds, user fees and other and reserves contribution. The Waka Kotaki have settled on the payment for the road reserve land, by the new roundabout, and the internal interest revenue continues to be driven by higher than budgeted market interest rates based on the surplus reserve balances. Expenditure has a favourable variance of $376,000. So all the areas that are above budget, including rates expense, grants, internal interest expense, building repairs and maintenance, and staff costs. The rates expense will finish higher than budget, and we have made adjustments for that for the annual plan coming up. The internal interest expense is driven in the same way as the revenue is, with the debt and reserve balances incurring higher interest costs. There is also interest expense here as well, just to define the two lines. So the interest expense is favourable, and that's due to the fact that we haven't actually uplifted any external debt for the Cromwell Master Plan projects. So that will happen once the regulation is research. It's part of the Community Board and the Council resolution. Capital expenditure has a favourable variance of $1.8 million. And again, your main drivers there are your town centre upgrade with the Cromwell report. So work has been carried out on those budgets to align with the national and council resolutions, with the exception of the most recent one from the council to the town centre upgrade. So that will be adjusted when we do our carry forwards in the current financial year. Other projects include the Cromwell swimming pool and sandy filter is due to be completed around June. That hasn't been completed. In July, we have an update. With the landscaping and irrigation projects underway that should be completed by the end of the financial year. And the low growth pool playground project is on hold, and the outdoor gym program, this project is not progressing this year. Any questions?
I've got a question actually. Why is the Melbourne playground actually on hold?
So, my understanding of what we
So, only probably haven't got staff capacity at the moment to just carry that forward and do it in the next financial. So it will happen.
Okay.
It's been upgraded for safety reasons, is that correct?
The mixture of it's not really the playability is not that good in it, and yes, we did play work there about 5 or 6 years ago, and this is the stage to it.
playgrounds now.
Any further points? No? Okay. So we can go back to the recommendation, and the recommendation is simply that the report be received. Sarah and Wally, thank you. Thank you, Don. Thank you. So now we'll move on to item 24.6.7, the mayor's report.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Frankly, a lot of the time since the last meeting has been dedicated to the annual plan process, and quite a bit of time on top of that, as with today, with the districtisation process to come. We had an unfortunate run of not being able to make the Cromwell Business Group meetings due to other commitments. I think the next one is the 3rd of July, and I'm hoping to be able to attend that. Mayor's Task Force for Jobs has been in operation for the last few months across the district. We've got an appointed coordinator working with NEETs, who are not employment education or training folk aged between 16 and 24, to get them into employment, and with potential employers. And at this stage, there's been 2 success stories in the Cromwell ward, with hopefully more to come out of 7 placements across the district. And it's a great credit to our coordinator, Craig Gilchrist, that these rangatahi are being placed and effectively lives are potentially being changed. And the other thing on that I attended with a Cromwell focus was a wonderful celebration with our Filipino community on an absolutely frigid Cromwell Sunday afternoon. It was the Santa Cruzan Festival. We got to march around the streets in a parade, which was bitter enough in a great coat for some of the ladies who were wearing frocks, but they did it. And then we had an absolutely delightful time with singing, dancing. Even I would call it bullied into dancing, because I think gentlemen of a certain age just shouldn't dance, and I'm one of them. Learning a lot about the culture that's hugely important and a very welcome part of our community. So that's my report, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much. So can we have a mover and seconder, please, to accept the mayor's report? Wally, going to move that, and Cheryl, second. Thank you. All those in favour?
Aye.
Chair's report. Well, we don't have a report from Anna, unfortunately. So, will I give my report? Yes. Okay. I don't have very much to report actually. Since the last meeting on the 7th of May, actually on that very day, I attended a Cromwell District Promotions Group meeting that evening. Excuse me. And unfortunately, since then, I've had a number of meetings which have been cancelled due to unfortunate health issues, which has given me an insight into the inadequacies of the of the health system in Central Otago, and I'll go no further than that at this moment. That's my report. So can you move around and say, Cheryl, please, would you like to?
Everything written down here, but anyway, on the 29th, we had council meetings and covered off this is just some of the things, but one of the robust discussions was on the representation of review on the spelling of Miniatoto. So anyway, we all spoke on that and subsequently was voted on. There was a report on the Otago Museum Draft Annual Plan 2024-25. Report from how we move forward. Oh, that with regard to how we provide the water services operations going forward. And then there was an update on the Ranfurly water incident in February. Update on the Cromwell rise in May and drinking water. The pipes that are going down around the town. Covered off the community school speed limits. Update on the plan change 19 hearings decision, and then there was some reports on the cemetery handbook, elderly persons housing review, cyber security policy. There was confirming that Sally Fineman, who is from Roxburgh, she will now be on the audit and risk committee, and many thanks to Neil Gillespie, who she's replacing. We had the 4th of June community extraordinary meeting, and then we had the 6th of June, which was the annual plan for council submissions and deliberations. And apart from that, I haven't done a great deal. Been to Wellington, been to Wellingtopia, and looking. Yeah.
Thanks, Cheryl. Wally, you'd like to go next?
So on the 4th of June, I attended the CCB extraordinary meeting as well to hear the annual plan submissions and the following workshop on districtisation. A meet and greet with Naylor Love, that was last week, was about the hall. Presented the annual plan submission to council on council's development standards. Last Thursday, I attended the Crux briefing and announcement event in Queenstown. It was well attended and worthwhile. Kids soccer every Sunday. And I get, my capacity is on Cromwell, the community group. We've provided funding to extend the disc golf in Cromwell from 9 holes to 18 at Anderson Park. That's quick. Put that down on the record. So that should be happening in the coming months. We should have 18-hole course.
Right. Has it been very popular?
Apparently so.
Yeah.
Never done it myself.
Thank you, Wally. Come back to Sarah. Can we go to Neil, please?
Yeah, thanks, Bob. Cheryl's done a pretty good job of the council meeting on the 29th of May. The other thing that was good about that, though, was the opportunity for the community board chairs to provide an update. So Anna was first up and gave a very good update of what's happening from the community board perspective. So that's the start of regular updates coming from community board chairs. So that was a good starting point. I think Anna did well, represented the board views quite well. And otherwise, the annual plan submissions, and we adopted considered what to do in response to the submissions, and the next meeting will be to adopt the annual plan later this month. Otherwise, I've got nothing else to report. Our hearings panel, 23rd of May, there was an application for the Mueller Family Trust at Pearson Road, another one up the Wanaka Road for Riverview, and one other that just escapes me. Those decisions are pending. That's it from me.
Thank you, Neil. Mary?
Yeah, just pull up my email. Sarah. So King's Birthday Weekend, I attended the Cromwell book sale. It's definitely a very, very well attended event. So it's a fantastic good winter activity. Another good winter activity actually runs through the summer as well, but I've been doing it in winter. As the weekly park run events are held in Alex. They're actually a nationwide thing. Unfortunately, there's actually not one in Cromwell, but there's ones in Alex, Queenstown, and Wanaka. So it's a individual or family event, just 5K run that's held every week. So it's a good activity to do. And I've also attended the Forsyth Bar Central Otago Sports Awards. They're held in Wanaka on Friday the 10th of May. This is an annual event, and there's always a lot of representatives from Central Otago, especially in rowing. Dunstan High often sends a contingent, and there was also good to see representatives from Central Otago inducted into the Sports Hall of Fame. And it's a good event on the sporting calendar for young athletes in Queenstown, Wanaka, and the Central Otago districts.
Okay, thank you, Mary. And last but not least, Sarah. Thank you.
I feel like I've done an awful lot, and yet no list of substance apart from everything aforementioned. And two things that I've been particularly involved in since last meeting and been involved in the setting up of the community response group through Otago Emergency Management. That's just getting involved with community at the moment, trying to get people in strategic positions and move that forward. That's quite an exciting time. There's a lot of momentum there. So that's something I'll be continuing with. At the moment, they're meeting every fortnight to get some wheels under a very slow moving train to start with, but it's going really well, really enthusiastic group. And I will be joining the board of the AA Roads, not drinkers, just to clarify. I wasn't sure when they asked. But interesting to hear they're an advocacy group, but listening to how that sits alongside what we're doing in roading and having travelled many kilometres on our roading network for winter sport for the children, it's good to get a view from the roadside as well. But yeah, that'll be a position I'll be taking up as the next meeting as well. But no.
Sarah? So could we have a... Okay. Right, so you'd like to move my report. Thank you, Sarah. And Wally. All those in favour, please.
Aye.
And now a mover and a seconder, please, for the members' reports. Wally? Thank you. And Cheryl?
Yeah.
Cheryl. And all those in favour?
Aye.
Thank you. So now we move on to item 24.610 on page 218, which is the status reports. And we have a memo on Gear Avenue with Gareth. Do you want to bring it up? Okay.
So on the back of a conversation that Nigel McKinley, Councillor Nigel McKinley asked about Gear updates, and I have subsequently given you an update. There's a really high level update on Gear Avenue and how we're going to be tracking moving forward. We've gone through the trials and tribulations of dealing with the stormwater treatments. Consent is imminent, and that's basically a really good tracking program on how we're going to be dealing up with the rest of the development and hoping to have titles by 2025 July. Concurrently, we're going to be running a procurement process for looking at what the vertical construction is going to look like for stage 1B. If the board recalls that we included stage 1B on the first stage development. It's a pretty exciting process as well, and we'll be bringing options back to the board to see what that's going to look like and what would be the best way forward to achieve a really good outcome in that respect. We did actually, Tara and myself presented to the surveyors, valuers conference that they held last week Friday, and they were really excited about this development moving forward as well. As you can imagine, another 110 dwellings coming out to the market is really a good news story. Another update, which I don't have on me, it was the to do the update on the CapEx report for the Cromwell Memorial Hall. That is still a draft. It should be completed by tomorrow, and then I'll just circulate that via an email out to the board. We do have all feet who's also getting the update.
Do we have to do these separately, or can we do two together?
We can do them all together, work together, general sense.
Okay, right. So now we have a memo on weighing the drive pedestrian crossing with Paul. Thank you, Paul.
So I'm assuming it's probably more of an informational gathering exercise for the community board to find out what was happening there. So obviously we've had a consent application come in, and subsequently some construction drawings for review for the development, and that includes a proposal to install a new pedestrian crossing along Wying Drive. So that is sitting. It's come across my desk, and now it's sitting with engineering development for review, based on the submitted design plans with a couple of minor changes, particularly to the ramp detail coming onto that raised pedestrian crossing, so actually making it a little bit wider, so it's not as pronounced a bump over that area. So I think it's a good improvement. A bit of traffic coming in the CBD area on Wying Drive, I think, is a good development contribution to the roading network. We have had quite a few speeding complaints on Wying Drive, probably more so down the other end of it, but at least if there's something there to slow traffic down when it's getting into pretty high use pedestrian, and probably in cyclists as well too in that area. It does get pretty busy, so I think it's a good addition to the roading network. I think so.
So at the other end to compensate for the time they lost at this inlet.
Yeah. So I've got a question. Do we have any idea of time frame on this at all?
I haven't at this stage, Bob. They're pretty much still in confirmation of design at the moment, but I certainly can have a talk to and see if they've had any indication of commencement for construction. But there's a little bit of park stuff to do there as well too, with realignment of the pathway to come directly into that pedestrian crossing as well too. So yeah, but I can come back to you on that.
And I think it's important also to to stress that this is something that's actually been proposed by the developer.
Yeah,
that's right, and paid for by the developer. That's right.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay.
Just.
Neil, sorry.
Yeah, sorry. Just to say that there's certainly been a lot of thought coming out of this about people that have been in the lifestyle village, and I know there's been a lot of communication with council about something happening here. So I'm hoping, if it hasn't done already, that there'll be that loop will be closed with that group that have been in contact with the council about this issue.
Yeah, that's fine. Now we can certainly make sure that we get some correspondence, a bit of information through to them. So you are correct. We have had complaints from them as well too around a lack of a suitable crossing point to get across to that side of Wying Drive around that area. So I can do that.
Yeah, and this is pretty well going to give them what they were looking for, to be honest, which is great, and it's really good that the developer, which I'm assuming will be Foodstuffs, is picking this up as part of an initiative for what it's done.
Yeah,
picking up the land, so it's a good outcome, and I hope to think that it's a good win-win, and good things come to those that are patient.
And of course, with the two crossings that are there, it gives a route straight into the town centre, if you like, to the medical centre and so on. So yeah. Anybody else have any questions of Paul?
Sorry, although alluded to it, so this was part of the condition volunteered by Foodstuff for them to buy some of that green space off and to expand their It's been on the go for this board for about 4 years now, probably. So we're nearly at the end of that process.
Okay, thank you. So we need to just have a mover and a second status report. So if there's anything else? Yeah. Is there any other questions on any other items on the status reports? Covered everything. Okay, so can we have a mover and a seconder for the status report be accepted? Cheryl, thank you. And Sarah, thank you. All those in favour? Aye. Thank you. So the next item is the date of the next meeting, which is going to be on Tuesday, the 6th of August. That's fine, we'll just have to announce that.
And I'll just note that I will be an apology for that meeting. I will be elsewhere.
Right. Thank you, Neil. So now we have on page 229 the resolution to exclude the public from the meeting. Sarah, thank you, and Cheryl. So thank you very much, everybody.
Yeah, right on, Bob. Short notice, subbed in at short.